Hey y'all, today's lesson is about slope and y-intercept. And we have gone over slope before. So just to review, slope is the steepness of a line. It's also called the rate of change. It's rise over run, and here it is in the formula, y minus y over x minus x.
Alright, the variable for slope is m, and we talked about that in class as well. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis.
So on a coordinate plane, you have the x-axis and the y-axis. The y is the vertical one. So wherever it crosses the y-axis, that is your y-intercept.
Alright, and that variable that denotes y-intercept, I know it doesn't make sense, but it's b. Alright, so the slope-intercept equation is y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope and b is your y-intercept.
And x and y are points on a graph, like we've been doing.
Alright, so in the first example, we have given you the equation in slope-intercept form, and you're going to identify the slope and y-intercept, or your m and b. So just as a reminder, this is the formula for slope-intercept.
And so on your notes, I want you to copy down the equation and then m equals and b equals. And then we're going to go through these examples. So number one, y equals 3x plus 4. You notice the equation, the m is always in front of the x. Always the m, not the b, but always the m. So whatever number is in front of the x, that is your slope. So in example A, 3 is your slope, a slope of 3. The b is going to be the plus or minus. So in example A, it's plus 4, so the b is 4.
Alright, next example, y equals negative 2x plus 5. Your m is the coefficient of x, or the number in front of the x. So that number is negative 2. And the b is what you add or subtract. And since we're adding 5, our b is positive 5.
Alright, so example C, it's in function notation, but remember f of x is the same thing as y. And the coefficient of x is 2, which means it has a slope of 2. This time, the b, this plus b, is actually a minus 6. And whenever you see that, we have talked about a minus and a negative are the same thing. So the b in this case is a negative 6.
Alright, example D is a little different. You have y equals x. Well, what is the coefficient in front of a variable? If nothing's written there, it's an invisible 1. So our slope is actually 1. And then we don't have a plus a number or minus a number. So what number represents nothing? That would be 0. So our y-intercept is 0.
So example E, copy these down, y equals negative x minus 3. And again, there is no necessarily value number, but the coefficient is a negative 1, because remember, if there's no number there, there's an invisible 1. So our slope is a negative 1. And the b, minus 3, really means negative 3. So the y-intercept is negative 3.
Right? F, y equals 1/2 x plus 1. The coefficient in front of x is going to be our slope, and that is 1/2. And the b value is going to be plus 1, which will be positive 1.
Now example G is a little different, so we wanted to make sure we've shown you. Hopefully you've noticed, like you have a red flag. What is missing in example G? And if you're thinking, oh, there's no x, that's exactly right, there is no x. So when you see problems that are missing the x, then those are going to have a very special characteristic. Because our slope is the coefficient of x, if there is no x, that means it would be 0 times x, because 0 times x is 0. If you have an equation that just has a y with no x, that means the slope is 0. And then the plus b is this value, and since it's positive, it's going to be just 7.
I'm going to add another example since we're doing y equals x. Let's add h. And let's do x equals 5. Alright, so this again is a special case. In this case, there's no y value. We only have x equals. So anytime you only have x equals, your slope ends up being undefined. And we talked about 0 and undefined slope, because if we actually graph this, this is a vertical line. And our b value is nothing, because it won't cross the y-axis.
Yeah, if we graphed this, and if it was a vertical line at 5, that means it would go over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't ever cross the y-axis, it's parallel. Therefore, there is no y-intercept, and the slope is undefined. So special cases, put stars by G and H.
Alright, so this time, we're giving you m and b, and you're going to write the equation in y equals mx plus b form. Alright, so for example A, I have m equals 4 and b equals positive 2. So it's going to be y equals my slope times x plus my b.
And it's that easy. We're not trying to trick you. You plug in your m and your b. So example B, my m is negative 2. That's the coefficient to x. So y equals negative 2x. My b, plus 0. But we don't write plus 0 because plus 0 is nothing. So I just leave it. Y equals negative x.
Alright, so example C, same thing. Y equals 1/3 x, because that's my m. And because this is a negative 3, then the plus is then going to change to minus 3. Remember, we're getting out of writing plus a negative. So plus a negative would be a minus 3.
So we don't write plus a negative, we just write a minus. Example D, my slope is 0 and my y-intercept is 1. Now we just talked about if you have a slope of 0 means it's a horizontal line. And if I tried to put 0 here, 0 times x is 0. So my equation, 0x plus 1. But 0 times x is 0. We don't need to write that. So it's just y equals 1. It's one of those special cases.
Special. Alright, E, m equals negative 1/2 minus 4. And I think this could be enough examples. You just plug in y equals negative 1/2 for m, x, and then remember, because this is negative, we don't write plus a negative, we just write minus 4.
So the next slides are the u-tries. Okay, we want you to do these u-tries. This first one says find the m and the b from the equation, and this one says write an equation when given the m and the b. And we will go over this in class.
See you tomorrow.